it goes. All right, so I do not have our microphone. Can you hear me okay? Do you want me to shut the door? Oh, I think the mic is here, but I was told I'm allowed to move a little, which is good. Thank you. So my name's Jaime Mahoney. I teach at Bunker Hill Community College. I am anti-slide. If you know me at all, you're probably not surprised about that. I know a few people in the room are not surprised. What I'm going to talk about today is active learning in IT. I'm going to try to give you a taste of active learning within IT. So we're going to do a little exercise in the middle. First, I'm going to introduce what I mean by active learning. Then we're going to talk on the other end of our exercise a little bit about how you may incorporate active learning into your courses. The first thing I want you to do in that effort, though, is the sticky note I just gave you. Please write down any one student learning objective for one of your courses, preferably an IT course, but I know you're not in IT. So any student learning objective, just one, on your sticky note. Maybe one you've been struggling with that you desperately want to come up with a great assignment for, or one that you have a great assignment for. It doesn't matter. One student learning objective. Okay? Or if you're not a faculty member, because I know there's a few in this room, one thing you would love to learn. Okay? We're going to come back to that to talk about how you might use that, how you might address that student learning objective with active learning. So first thing that I want to do is show a little video from YouTube. It's not mine, but it is a pretty good one about what I mean by active learning and what's meant by active learning. So we'll get this started, hopefully. Here, do we have sound? Let's see. Oh, it's on. Okay, I'm not sure that there is sound. essentially what the video is trying to explain is that through active learning, when you're talking about things like reading a textbook or listening to a lecture or listening to me talk right now, there's only a certain percentage of that we can retain, and that our students can retain. When they listen to something, okay, whether it's on the radio or a podcast or whatever, there's a certain amount that they retain from that. The way in which human beings, and the studies show this, retain the most information and are able to then not just retain it but apply it, okay, and think about it at those higher level thinking skills is through doing, through active engagement, whether that's discussion, okay, whether that's teaching others, or whether that's physically engaging in a task. And that task could be physical in nature, and I'll give you an example of that in the exercise we do today-ish, or whether that is on a computer. I will tell you that I am a huge advocate of active learning, and again, those of you that know me know this, but I'm often told that, oh, well, of course active learning is easy to do in IT. And the answer is it is, which is great for us, but it is not only using a computer to do labs. Okay, that isn't one mechanism of active learning, but one of the things that we're going to try to do today is dispel the myth that you need a computer to do active learning, because many of my colleagues in other departments at Bunker Hill or other community colleges will frequently say, well, of course it's easy in IT because you have the computer or some device. So we're going to try to dispel that. So why should you care about active learning? I've told you a little bit about why you should care, hopefully. Your students the studies show that students learn best this way. One of the things that data shows is that students must do more than just listen. As we said, they must read, write, discuss, and be engaged in solving problems. And these are the ways that they learn best. In particular, students must engage in higher order thinking skills or tasks such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Active learning engages students in two aspects: doing things and thinking about the things that they're doing. And these are from Wikipedia, various sources from there, but I just wanted to make sure I said that. So first thing, how can you do this? And many of the, this is a pedagogy approach, obviously, but there are ways in which you can take this and do it in multiple different ways. So you can do project-based learning, you can do scenario-based learning, you can have problem-based learning, you can have students as teachers. So the simplest way to execute an active learning assignment is to simply flip it and have the students teach what you would have taught. So for example, in some of my classes, I have students teach the chapters from the book rather than using that canned, slideshow or presentation that I get from the textbook, that we all get from the textbook. I have them do the presentation. And what's interesting, and the data shows this across the board, but I've also noticed it within my own students, is when they take that exam, guess what they do, what happens when they take that exam on that chapter that they taught? They do much better, okay? Because to teach something, you have to learn it. We all know that because we teach. So that is active learning, okay? It is actively engaging in the material in such a way that you have to teach it, okay? So that's an example of active learning as well. It's one that people don't always think of as active learning. So we're going to engage in a small active learning experience. This is one I do with my students. Traditionally, I do it slightly different than we're going to do it today. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish of you. So I'm going to ask if you can get in maybe 3 groups or so, maybe the 2 guys in the back, maybe you 2, and maybe could you 3 get together? Would that be possible? You and you, or however you want to group up, and maybe say 3 groups. That's my first assignment. 3 groups. Get up, find your group, sit with them, just like you were students. You can join whatever group. All right, so we have roughly 3 groups. You guys in the back are a group, I know. Simon, you ready? Lou, you ready? Okay. Yeah, so get to know each other. That's nice. You should probably say hi. All right, so here's the exercise. And this is an exercise, as I said, I do with my students, and we'll explain that at the other end. I want each of you, you're sitting in front of a computer, but if you have paper, it works even better, because I don't think we have a printer in this room. But if you don't have a piece of paper, I will get you one. That'll be my job. But on a piece of paper, as a group, I want you to produce a set of instructions for how you would basically take spreadable cheese and put it on crackers. Okay? So we have, if you have, thank you very much. And you're going to create one set of instructions per team, correct? Okay? You only have about 5 minutes to do this. Okay? Sounds really funny, right? Sounds like, what does this have to do with IT? We'll get there. Okay? So, you have paper? Anyone need paper? Okay. You have about 5 minutes, set of instructions. How would you get cheese and crackers and spread it on? Spread the cheese on. Create a cracker with cheese on top. You're writing a set of instructions, correct? No question. Just accept it. Oh, you're not allowed to Google either, by the way. So just your brain. No computers. If you want. Instructions. So now let's see how good you are at writing instructions. Pierre is going to execute the instructions that you just wrote. But the challenge is he's going to execute them assuming no knowledge about what a cracker is, what cheese is, what a knife or a plate is, or anything else, just like a computer would. Ready? So instructions number 1. Are you ready, Pierre?
Yes.
All right. Open the jar of cheese. I don't think he knows what cheese is. There's no jar. Open the box of crackers. Did I tell you how to open it, Pierre? How do you open it? Huh. Pick up the knife. Remove crackers from the box. Okay. That looks good. Place on counter. You just okay, good. Scoop the cheese with the knife. Good. Apply the cheese knife to cracker. Scrape cheese onto cracker. And then place the knife on the counter. Very well done. Do we have cheese on a cracker? No. Okay. Let's try again. What we will need. Say we need a knife and plate. Does it say cheese and crackers, or does it say something before that? Cheese and crackers. Okay. Open package of crackers and put one on plate.
I think I would do that.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think it said to open the sleeve. No, it just said put it on the plate. Good. That works. Open tub of cheese.
This is the box.
Grab knife and dip in cheese. spread cheese on cracker with an upward motion. Pick up cracker with fingers and enjoy. Okay, do we have cheese on crackers? No. Let's try one more. I'm going to skip open a drawer because we don't have one. Get a knife. Locate the crackers and the spreadable cheese. Remove the crackers and the spreadable cheese. I don't know where you're moving them from, but open the crackers.
It's stuck to open the cracker.
Yeah, I don't know how to open it.
If you just open the cracker, you open the
Right, you open the bag.
Right.
Open the jar of cheese. Everybody likes jars. Yeah, I did, yeah. True. Swipe the cheese with the knife, getting an appropriate amount of cheese. Take a sip of scotch. Spelled wrong, by the way. Scotch is spelled wrong. And then close the jar and put away crackers.
So we got the point.
Okay. So, what's the point of the exercise? Just guess. Not enough instructions, right? Why? What? We do. We make assumptions. Exactly. Human beings do what? We make assumptions, right? I know how to open cheese, and I know what you mean by open the crackers, right? Do computers make the same assumptions? Unless you program it to do it, they don't make those assumptions, correct? So programming requires, computers don't do that. They don't make assumptions. Programming requires detailed instructions written in very sequential order and very laying out, defining what a variable is, defining what a cracker is, defining what cheese is, what a knife is, what a plate is, what a bag, whether it's in a bag, a jar, the identification of these items, and then we have to step-by-step work through it. Now, I'm not going to make you do this part, so this would be sort of the end of this piece of active learning with my students, but the next thing I would do with them is then have them use that exercise, try again, and using pseudocode, write a program for doing this, okay, using just language, okay, that we would use, so in a pseudocode format. And I would now add some additional things to it, though. I would say, okay, you need to use a loop. You need to have a test, okay, of some sort. Create the pseudocode. And then we would do that in class, okay? And this would be a classic example of teaching things like programming concepts, looping, and introducing tests, introducing pseudocode, introducing programming, and some of the basic programming concepts, okay? This is an example I use in the IT problem solving class, which is an entry-level class, before they start their first programming assignment, okay? Make sense? Did you have a little bit of fun? Was it a little bit silly? Do you think the students will remember it? That day I was in class? And I heard you say, you said somebody does it with peanut butter and jelly. I usually do it with peanut butter and jelly, but I was fearful of allergies today, so I just went with. Because usually I can ask that question earlier in the semester of the students, like work it in some point before, do you have peanut allergies? Today I was nervous about that, so we did cheese and crackers. So that was my safety net. Yeah?
I was thinking, from a high level too, this is kind of the same thing that happens when we teach a class, we give instructions
Yes.
to students to make assumptions that we didn't really anything.
Absolutely.
They screw everything up.
Yeah, well, fundamentally, this exercise goes back to, it's a communications exercise. It's not about programming. It never came from that land, but it works great to explain programming. And you can do anything. Peanut butter and jelly is nice because no matter what culture, Bunker Hill is very diverse, but kind of no matter what culture you've come from, once you're in the United States, everyone's had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So it's sort of an ubiquitous, American thing that everyone sort of understands and knows. The other thing that is nice about it is it's physically active. You've got people getting up, you've got people putting together, the sandwich, and it's kind of silly, but it sticks. They'll remember it because it's sticky. but it doesn't lack, it's also not just a fun thing that I'm doing. It doesn't have a purpose or a lesson behind it, okay? So it's fun, and it's fun to do for me. I don't know how other people feel, but active learning is fun from that standpoint. All right, so the takeaway from this should be that active learning in IT does not necessarily mean I'm interacting with a computer, okay? Another example of something I thought of that we might have done today, instead of this, that I've done with my students, is a scavenger hunt. I've had the students go and do a scavenger hunt. Imagine I'm teaching hardware concepts, okay, peripherals, and I need them just to identify them, okay? I can send them on a great scavenger hunt on campus, 20 minutes, with their smartphones, go get a picture of a mouse, go get a picture of this peripheral, go get a picture of that. Or even concepts. Find me a picture of somebody blogging. Get me a picture of somebody doing, you know, whatever, okay? Show me cloud computing. You also can have them do this on the internet, just using, you know, these same concepts and say, go find them on the internet. But it's much more fun to get up and move around, etc. And the students have done that and enjoyed that as well. So there's many ways in which to do active learning that is IT-based without this guy, okay? So that was one of the other things I wanted to get through in this presentation, because again, a lot of my colleagues who don't teach in IT will say, well, of course that's easy for you. All right, so the last piece that I want to talk about before I give you a little time to ask questions and think about things is, this is great. If you bought into the concept that, you know, active learning is the thing to do and it's great that it is stickier for students and, hey, it could be fun as well, is how do you do it? I think some people sometimes get hung up on, how do I start? I have all these learning objectives. How do I now build a project? Or how do I come up with an exercise that's fun and engaging and start to do this? And I told you one simple one already. If you're really, really nervous about trying it and you just want to do something really basic, do not do your lectures from the textbook. Ask the students to do the chapter lectures, okay? Push that on them. That's a really easy thing to try that's kind of safe and not so challenging to do, okay?
You have students like create presentation materials?
Yes. So, and I tell them any format. A lot of them will go to PowerPoint because it's what they know. But I tell them they can do a skit, they can do a Jeopardy game, they can do anything, they can create a video, they can find a great article, they can do anything they want as long as it covers the content in the chapter. And I don't say to them it has to cover all the content in the chapter, but it has to cover some key concepts, essentially. I also will often have them work in groups because obviously we have usually, you know, 10 chapters or 8 chapters, and we have many more students than that. So working in groups is also a great thing you can try with this. So that's a really easy one, right? So great question. I have not, but I have had colleagues who have done that. And part of that is because I'm fairly multiple choice test averse. So the other thing I'm not a huge fan of is multiple choice tests. I do a lot of project-based stuff and then rubrics based on those projects to create deliverables. Again, looking at more what skills do they need when they leave the classroom. Other than certification exams, when was the last time you took a multiple choice test to assess your work? Not very often, and so that skill is not, to me, the most important. But I have a lot of colleagues who do that, and I think it's great. I think it's a great way to, again, turn it on them. And they come up with better test questions than the textbook ever does, too. So here's my strategy. How do you do this? Beg, borrow, and steal. So here's what I mean by that. Beg. Find a faculty member who already does this well. Okay? If there's somebody on campus who does this well, it doesn't matter what discipline they're in, okay? Because it's not about the content. You're the discipline expert, and you can figure that piece out, or you can at least know where to start to looking. But sometimes you just need somebody who can kind of hold your hand through it and reassure you it's going to be okay. Also, many campuses have learning centers or have active learning centers or instructional design centers. Most community colleges do not, at least not in Massachusetts that I'm aware of, but a lot of the four-year schools do, and they are more than willing to hear from us because they are interested in moving this along. One example is the Derek Fox Center for Teaching and Learning, which is out of Harvard. They have a whole website, great website. They're also very interested. They're not just interested in Harvard faculty. So if you want to call them and ask for their help, they are willing to hear from us. They also have a resource site with different project ideas. Yeah, absolutely. The website is boxcenter.harvard.edu/active learning. But let me bring it up. Can I do it here?
Sure.
Okay. And I'm just going to do what I did to find it in the first place, Google. It's Derek Bach, B-O-K. Oops. Center. And here it is. And they have active learning. Okay, so it's a whole center. It's based out of Harvard, but they have an active learning. We talk about active learning pedagogies. And then they have these material and course examples. Yay. They have syllabus design. They have how do you assess things. And then they also, I don't think it's on this page, but they have a resource of projects and wonderful things as well. So great starting point, okay? There are others. I'm more familiar with Harvard just because I went to a conference recently that was hosted by these folks, but there are a lot of them out there. So that's one, that's my beg. So the next one is borrow. Borrowing is, to me, Googling active learning and finding everything that you can find. Find a kernel of an idea from online that isn't necessarily about teaching IT. And I'm going to give you an example of a kernel of an idea I found. For example, I found an exercise that teaches physics principles using cartoons. So it was an exercise using Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons. There's tons of physics principles in these that are violated all over the place. And I found some clips that demonstrated different physics principles. And then I gave that, and I did this for a professional development for other faculty members, but I gave that assignment. So I said to them, here's 3 cartoons. Tell me in each cartoon what physics principle is it representing, and is it violating it, and then find me another video that demonstrates that same principle. Okay? These were all faculty members from Bunker Hill. None of them were physics instructors. I don't teach physics, and they did a fabulous job and thought it was so fun. Why couldn't I do that with IT? Why couldn't you find a clip from the social network or from, pick whatever your favorite IT movie is, The Matrix, whatever. Find a clip that explains a concept that you were planning on explaining anyways, and then have them explain the concept, okay, and then have them find another video that does the same thing, okay? Great exercise. Again, you can do it in 20 or 30 minutes. You can have a conversation on the other end. You can have them do it for homework and then present them. Great, great exercise, okay? So that was a physics idea, but why not take it and apply a physics active learning idea? Why not take it and apply it to IT? All right, that's my borrow. My last is steal. Google your student learning objective, the one you just wrote down, as well as active learning, and see if there's any great projects that are already out there. There are lots of them, I will say. Attribute the author, of course. Only use material that's not copyrighted unless you get the copyright permission. And my hint is that there are some projects, active learning projects that I've used in IT problem solving. You're welcome to them at any time. And that's it. Those can be found at itproblemsolving.blogspot.com, and I can show you those as well. Those are not all the ones I've ever used, but they're the ones from the IT problem solving course. So beg, borrow, and steal. The last part of this, we only have about 10 minutes, but I will basically open it up to questions, and then if you want to spend the last few minutes at your student learning objective, either talking to somebody else about ideas or doing a quick Google search, you're welcome to do that. If you've just had it and it's the end of the day and you're ready to go, I'll let you go as well. So it's the end of the day. We have the raffle, yes, stay for the raffle though. But you can take a little rest. So any questions about anything I've said, or? Yes?
Well, it seems to me that, are you thinking about doing like a whole class this way, or I mean, there's so many nuances and subtleties and coding that I can think a lot of the stuff will be missed. I mean, the highlights might have a main thing, but there's something, you know. So, and the other thing is, what happens if, sure, the people doing the presenting are going to learn it really well, but maybe their presentation doesn't register with students, and so the students have a big hole there, where the ones who presented got it, but then everybody else was supposed to present with you. So how do you deal with this?
So great question. So the first question is, it can be done in a class entirely based this way, because I do teach a class that way, entirely project-based. It is an entry-level class, so I have an opportunity in later classes to refine information. But what's interesting, if you give them a good project, and as Suzanne said in her presentation, if you give them a lot of autonomy, a lot of ownership, a lot of ability to be creative, it becomes their project, not a project that was assigned for class. And as a result, they actually go much deeper than you necessarily need them to. The key part to that, in my experience, is creating the assignment correctly. So if there's student learning objectives you need them to get, you need to build that into the assignment. And how you do that is you put in technical requirements or constraints or whatever. So for example, for programming, I'll say to them, you have to use a loop. You have to use 2 different types of loops. You have to have a test. You have to put certain constraints in there. If I'm having them do a Word document and I need them to learn columns, for example, in Word, then I have to say to them, the document you create in Word, whatever it's about, has to contain 2 columns. So there's certain, you build in those requirements so they're forced to learn how to do that as a result of it. Does that answer the first question? There are nuances. There are other courses, I will say. I teach like an ethical hacking class. The entire thing is not project-based. There's quite a bit of active learning, but there are mini lectures, is what I would say. And those mini lectures are actually not on textbook content, because I make them do the textbook content. I do mini lectures on stuff that I feel like is more current information that they need to be aware of today. The textbooks tend to get outdated. But I keep those to 20 minutes or less as well. And they're usually, a lot of times I'll actually even ask the students, what do you want a mini lecture on? Like what relevant ethical hacking things are you interested in next week? And I'll do a mini lecture on it. But I do essentially what I expect them to do, and I've shown them that. I will go out and I will Google what it is, because usually it's not something I know a lot about. I'll go out, I'll Google it, I'll find a great YouTube video, I'll spend a few hours doing a little research to come up with a mini lecture. So it's also modeling what it is you're looking for them to do when they do the presentation. So that's one great way you can do it. Do some kind of mini lecture to actually model what it is you're looking for from them. Sometimes you get bad presentations, and that is the reality. What I tell the students, again, from the beginning of the semester, is if you get that bad presentation, sometimes you get bad professors who give bad presentations, and you're still expected to know the content. So they have to do their own legwork, essentially. But what I have found is when the students know that they're responsible for everybody else's chapter, the delivery, there's less of bad presentations, I will say. And then also if you add the modeling in, it tends to go better. Not perfect, but better. Does that answer those questions? I hope. So you're never going to get 100%, but if you can get close, I think it's helpful. And the amount that they gain from teaching it it's really nice. It's really nice. So, yeah.
It's the first couple of weeks of the semester.
Yeah.
Every time I start group project,
Yeah.
I assign, I have a list or something, whatever.
Yeah.
And some people will run out of the classroom.
Yeah.
A couple of them, I don't think it's a group, and they say,
Yeah.
what are the
So, so great. So the question was about group projects and how do you have students be engaged in them and not fearfully run out of the room, or, I'm going to sit in my seat and I'm going to pretend that I don't have to do it, things like that, right? Just kind of the responses we get to group projects. I tell them day one in class, everything's project-based. I actually show them a little video about what does it mean to do a project-based course, and I'm thinking of the course that's entirely project-based. I need to tell them right from the very beginning, this is not lecture style, this is not multiple choice. You're going to have no tests, which they think is great. But they need to know, what does that mean? Because there is still, that means that there's other stuff that's going to be hard instead of the test. It's just different stuff. So they know that from the beginning. I don't pick their groups. I let them pick their own groups, which there's a lot of research that says it's a bad idea. But here's what I will say has worked for me. They are doing 3 group projects in that class. They pick their groups. They are evaluated. Part of their grade is how they participated in the team. So I have a teamwork rubric that they complete for themselves and for each member of their team. So let's say there's 4 people in the team. I will get 4 rubrics on each person. They're anonymous. I don't know who did, everybody's evaluated everybody, but I don't know which one is from whom. They're anonymous. They're paper on purpose because they're anonymous, which is a pain for me, but it's important for them that it's anonymous. If their average score, it's a 4-point rubric. So if their average score is a 3 instead of a 4, which is what I'm expecting, 4 is the best, then they lose half a letter grade. So if the team got an A on the deliverable, on the project, they're now getting an A-. If they get a 2 on the rubric, then they're now getting, they lose a whole letter grade. And if they get a 1, they lose 2 letter grades. So if the team got an A, they're now a C. And that's basically, they know that ahead of time before they start the project. So you are being evaluated. Your grade is very much based on how much you participate in this. The teammates, but it all, and that's for 2 reasons. Your point, I need them to produce a product at the end, or they don't learn any of the student learning objectives, and I'm in trouble, right? So what I'm trying to do is if 3 of the people in the group are productive and 1's not, I need those 2 people to still complete the project because they need to get those learning objectives. So if those 3 people complete it and the other person does nothing, should they get the A? No. And most students feel that way. No, they shouldn't get an A, and I would feel that way. So they get the C, essentially. But next project comes along, next group project, which is usually, there's usually a 1, individual 1 after that, and then another group 1. They can create new teams. So everyone's a free agent. So if this person who didn't participate very well, I don't want to work with them again, I don't have to work with them. I can find somebody else to join my group. So it also creates this sense of peer pressure within this, you know, if you don't behave yourself, you're in trouble, right? Because now people don't want to work with you. I learned this from my MBA program. I got an MBA many years ago, but I did it in an executive level MBA program, so everybody was very kind of motivated, but there were certain people who didn't, you know, if people started to figure out, oh, I don't want to work with that person because, you know, maybe they're intense. That's not negative, but kind of they're intense and our personalities don't match or whatever. So we pretty quickly figured out who you want to work with and not. So that strategy has worked very well. Now, only one time in probably 10 semesters or 11 semesters that I've taught this class have I ended up with a group of 4 individuals who nobody wanted to work with. So I had a group of basically these are underperforming individuals when it comes to teamwork. And I was hoping, if I put them together, somebody's going to come through, right? Guess what? Nobody came through. But they didn't hurt anybody else either in the process. They only hurt themselves. So I don't know if it was the right thing to do. I really, really hoped somebody would come through. It didn't work out. So that's how I deal with it. 1, expectation right from the beginning. 3 group projects. If this isn't for you, go see the registrar and find another class because this is not for you. You have to change your groups and make it as fair as possible and give them as much say in the group makeup as possible, and that seems to work okay. And then kind of the pressure, the peer pressure and the pressure of, you know, my grade is based on this. So, it doesn't mean that they like it all the time, but they do seem to accept it. So, and they need to do it. It's really important that they do it, and that's what we keep hearing. Yeah. Correct. Correct. It is. And usually at the beginning of the semester they don't like me very much, but I have to tell you by the end, they've flipped, they may not love me, but they've flipped the opinion about the class where I learned so much more by being forced to do this way. That's usually the feedback. So. Yeah. Okay. Did you want to ask a question?
Those students that nobody wants to work with, you know, it's a good experience in terms of real life. That employees, you know,
right.
they don't keep the jobs. And so
right.
They could work 2 ways. They just stay there or they have to turn around and next time they want to.
Well, and I think the thing that I think is useful about it is they're getting feedback. They're getting indirect feedback about, you know, if they know everybody in their team got an A and they got a C, they know why. Nobody has ever asked me, why did I get a C and everybody else got an A? They know, because I've told them up front. They know. And it's really, it's feedback in a way that I'm not forcing the students to say to their fellow student, you were a really bad teammate. Yeah, so that seems to help. Okay, other questions? Take your homework. Take your student learning objectives and find something active to do with your students next semester. Got a few weeks. Find something fun. And let me know how it goes. Thank you. Thank you.